On the menu today, CoroCoro Roundup. But before we do that, there are some loose ends that I'd like to tie up from the last video. Remember when I mentioned that Brandon was apparently from Johto? Well, several people said in the comments that Brandon, the manga states that Brandon is actually from Goldenrod, so I remembered that much right. But then again, this is the Brandon from the manga. And as I stated in my Pokemon Red LP, it's possible that the anime, manga, and games are like three parallel, closely related universes. No one knows for sure, but let's just consider that Brandon is actually from Goldenrod. And another thing that I'd like to mention, remember Cool Trainer Vito? The one that some people told me that actually he was the lost Winstrait. You remember that family from Route 111? They said that there was a trainer in their family that was far stronger than any of those that were there. And, well, that would be Vito. But I was so absorbed into talking that it just completely flew over my head because I knew that it was Vito. That Vito was the last of the Winstraits. And, yeah, I even mentioned it when I fought the Winstraits, that the last one was on Victory Road. So that's just to clarify. I already knew about this, but sometimes I get so busy commentating that that kind of thing just goes way over my head. So, CoroCoro. Actually, it's sort of bittersweet because we expected something big and we got something big, but it wasn't what we expected that we actually ended up getting. We expected a lot of things from that thing called the Mastery Document, if you remember, but all it turned out to be was a list of all the Pokemon that were officially revealed on CoroCoro so far. So we learned absolutely nothing new from that thing. Now the rest of the magazine was a lot more interesting. Where to begin? Where to begin? I have my own idea, but first things first, I'm going to, when I can do it, I'm going to take off Regice as my lead because Regice is now out of Ice Beams, and a Regice without Ice Beam isn't very useful, so I'm gonna go with Milotic instead. So, yeah, here we go, CoroCoro. Yesterday, we learned that Mamanbu would swap out Swift Swim for the much more useful Hydration, which is very cool news because Love Disc didn't need Swift Swim at all. It was already fast enough. It was the only thing Love Disc did right, so for it to already have such high speed, agility, and Swift Swim, that was overkill. So they decided to give it Hydration, and the next day, well, everyone was saying that, oh, Mamanbu could actually succeed in the overused tier now. And the next day, what do we learn? That Vaporeon gets it too. Wow, way to be a buzzkill there. Actually, that doesn't take anything from the fact that Mamanbu is probably going to be a great Pokemon. But why use it when you can use Vaporeon, which is probably going to be better? I'm not going to be making any big predictions, but we know what to expect from Vaporeon. We don't know what to expect from Mamanbu. So, yeah, the thing about Vaporeon getting Hydration is that they decided to give Pokemon new abilities for Pokemon that are found in the Dream World. Now, does it mean that all the Vaporeons that are going to be found in the Dream World will have Hydration? Personally, I doubt it. I have a theory on that, and it's that, remember in Generation 4, when they gave second abilities to Pokemon that used to have only one in Generation 3, such as, for example, Magic Guard on Clefable, or Solar Power on Tropius, and some others? Well, I think they're just doing the same thing here, but that they are stuffing all those Pokemon in the Dream World so that they can pretend that those Pokemon are special. But if you were to use an action replay to trigger a Vaporeon wild encounter outside of the Dream World, there could still be a 50% chance that it would have Hydration. That's just a theory. Don't go passing it off as fact, please. Just a theory. And by the way, Vaporeon getting Hydration means that I wouldn't be surprised at all if all the evolutions got a second ability. I always found it weird that Eevee got 2 abilities, but its evolutions only got 1, so I guess it's going to be fixed in a way, unless the Dream World abilities really are special in terms of the game code. But my theory still makes sense given the way abilities were coded into the game in generations 3 and 4. But the thing that people are probably going to remember the most about this edition of CoroCoro is that it made public the fact that TMs will no longer be destroyed after 1 use. So you find that Earthquake TM, you can use it as many times as you want. This is incredible convenience for all those people who still use Wi-Fi for battling so that they don't need to do either unending breeding chains or never-ending sessions in the battle frontier and so on. So this is really excellent news. It does have a downside, however. In-game may become even easier because of that. I'm hoping that they're going to try and balance that fact out somehow, because being able to give Earthquake to anyone you want without any limits is really going to make a difference. And I'm using Earthquake as an example because it's probably the most famous TM that you can not buy in bulk. Well, you can buy them in Battle Frontier in some games, but that's hardly being buyable in bulk, whereas just using the Versus Seeker a couple times to rack up some money and pay the game corner with that money, that is a bit closer to being buyable in bulk. So yeah, I'm using Earthquake for the sake of example, but it could really be any TM. For example, you could only need to buy 1 TM of Flamethrower, then use it on your entire army of fire Pokemon if you so choose. And another thing that's worth talking about is the seasons. Yep, there are going to be seasons in this game. They have revealed that seasons are going to last only 1 month, however, so that you can go through the entire cycle of the seasons 3 times per year without trying to change the internal clock of your DS, but that's another story entirely. But yeah, the reason why they're doing that is that for those who don't want to cheat their way using the internal clock, well, they don't have to wait for like 6 months before they can find a Pokemon that they want. So that's why they're doing it that way, which is sort of cool, I guess. And another thing that they've added is that you can access different places depending on the seasons. Remember Click Clock Wood from Banjo-Kazooie? It's sort of the same thing here. For example, they showed an example where there's a high ledge that you cannot reach in any other way than by waiting until winter and then using the snow to get up to that ledge. And wild encounters will also vary by season, which would be cause for concern if the issue dex is indeed as small as I think it'll be, because it means that if you go through the entire game in like 2 weeks, that means that of the 150 Pokemon in the issue dex, there are going to be some that you won't meet at all until you get to, for example, winter. So that means even less variety, and it's something that I think the Generation 1 games, as well as Diamond and Pearl, really suffered in that department by having regional dexes of only 150 Pokemon. So, to take away some of those Pokemon depending on the season, I mean, the time of day it's okay, because you can play at day and night all in the same day, but if you don't want to cheat, then you're gonna have to wait until a certain month in order to have certain Pokemon available. Oh well, maybe it's just 1 or 2 Pokemon in a limited amount of routes, and it's not really such a big deal after all, but I guess that's the kind of thing we will only know when we actually get our hands on the game. So, okay, now it's time to take a little break, so after the break, more CoroCoro talk and the home stretch of Victory Road.